This is every Unsolved Family Guy mystery explained, starting off with who ran over Brian. With this mystery dating back all the way to season 12's Life of Brian, after Brian and Stewie are playing a game of street hockey, and a mysterious figure then runs over Brian with their car.
Brian, look out!
And of course, this immediately drew speculation from fans of Family Guy, as let's face it, Brian has had more than his fair share of enemies throughout the show.
Hey, are you at Dog Backwards from Twitter?
I am. Are you a fan?
You racist jerk! I hope you get foot and mouth disease!
And when this episode released back in 2013, the Family Guy forums immediately flooded with speculation that the driver of the car was Glenn Quagmire. Which honestly makes complete sense, as Brian and Quagmire have had a long, heated rivalry.
God, you're pretentious. And you delude yourself by thinking you're some great writer, even though you're terrible. You know, I should have known Cheryl Tiegs didn't write me that note. She would have known there's no A in the word definite.
However, this is far from the only person that would want Brian dead. As let's not forget Brian's son Dylan, who in season 6's former Life of Brian, finally gets to meet his long-lost father, Brian.
Brian, this is Dylan. He's your son.
Oh, no way! Jerry!
With Brian then completely changing Dylan's life, after they have an incredibly heartwarming smoke session, and then Brian gets Dylan on the straight and narrow by dressing him sharply and getting him ready for the real world.
Hey there, everybody. Was somebody looking for a son with a bright new path to adulthood and his very, very proud dad?
However, after this point, Brian is a horrible father to Dylan, as he not only abandons him in this episode, but Brian then briefly comes back into Dylan's life in season 12, once he finds out that his son is famous, only to then immediately abandon him again once he gets fired as a writer on his show. And considering the fact that the episode where Brian abandons Dylan is called The Former Life of Brian, and the episode in which Brian dies is called Life of Brian, well, it's not too far of a stretch to see Dylan being the one to hit his absent father. However, there are many other names that fans have pointed to as being Brian's killer, including alternate universe Stewie, Peter, or even Vinny the dog.
Anyway, a bunch of us got together and beat him with a grill lid and windshield wipers. And let's just say, you don't do chick stuff no more.
But of course, let me know in the comments, who do you think ran over Brian? And so, moving on to our next Family Guy mystery, why does Meg Griffin always wear a hat? Well, the answer to this is incredibly interesting, as it's actually been discussed in multiple episodes. You see, we first get the answer to this age-old question in season 11's Friends Without Benefits, when Meg is trying to win over the clearly gay Kent, and he has to shut her down politely. And in my opinion, the funniest part is that later on in this same episode, when Meg is confessing her love for Kent to her friends, she then starts experiencing heart palpitations coming out of her head.
You don't understand. He's all I think about. I can't eat. I can't sleep. Just thinking about him now gives me heart palpitations.
And after this, we would then get another wonderfully traumatic reason for Meg's constant hat usage, where after both Chris and Meg suffer nervous breakdowns, they then take off their hats to reveal their incredibly troubling problem with pulling their hair out. And honestly, it's hard to blame them being stressed as they live in the Griffin household.
It's never been this bad before. What do we do?
What we always do.
I'm in charge of my head, that much I know!
However, not every reason for Meg wearing a hat is quite this traumatizing, as we later find out that Meg actually has a green monster under her hat.
You know, Meg, I'd love to see you without your hat on. Okay.
Before we see that Meg and Chris aren't even human at all, but rather they've been pieces of Lego this entire time.
Let's just see what you look like without. Whoa! You kids are Legos?
I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Mom.
And so, our next Unsolved Family Guy mystery is why hasn't there been a Family Guy movie? I mean, given how successful the show is and the fact that it's now been running for over 23 seasons, surely Family Guy wants the same success as South Park and The Simpsons on the big screen. And no, before you comment, Stewie Griffin The Untold Story is not a movie.
Stymie Gruffin, The Untold Story. It's not a movie at all, Brian. Just 3 episodes back to back. This thing is an insult.
Well, what if I told you that a Family Guy movie has already been written? That's right, in an interview this year, Seth MacFarlane stated that he's known what will happen in the Family Guy movie for over 15 years. But because of his other projects such as The Orville, and who could forget the Ted movies and TV show, well, Seth MacFarlane has just never had the time to get round to making the Family Guy movie. Which truly does raise the question, what year will the Family Guy movie come out? And will it even still be worth watching with the quality of the modern episodes?
Brian, we're pregnant. Oh my god!
In my view, if Seth MacFarlane has creative control over the movie, then it will be a massive success. But if not, then it will probably just be okay. And so, moving on, our next unsolved Family Guy mystery is why does Peter hate the Godfather so much? However, before we get into that, today's video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. With the incredible people over at Manta Sleep providing me with their Manta Sleep Mask Pro along with their coveted Manta Sleep Sound Mask, which comes with razor-thin Bluetooth headphones so that after a long busy day of watching Family Guy, or, you know, being productive, well then I can put on my Manta Sleep Sound Mask and drift off to sleep with even more Family Guy episodes. And whether you're rich enough to be diving into pools of coins, or living like a more normal person, well then Manta Sleep has an incredible range so that you can find the perfect sleep mask and cooling eye cups for you. So please do yourself a favor and go to Manta Sleep and use my code Harry for 10% off. And of course, a massive thank you to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. Okay, so back to Family Guy. Many fans of the show were absolutely stunned in season 4 when Peter is faced with certain death and tells the family that he didn't like the film The Godfather.
But since we're all gonna die, there's one more secret I feel I have to share with you. I did not care for The Godfather.
What?
Did not care for The Godfather.
And after this clip blew up during the threat of the TikTok ban, well then this prompted people to ask, why does Peter hate The Godfather so much? And as it turns out, Peter saying that The Godfather insists upon itself was actually due to Seth MacFarlane's professor in college saying the exact same thing about the 1965 film The Sound of Music.
Explain yourself. What didn't you like about it?
It insists upon itself, Lois.
What?
It insists upon itself.
What does that even mean?
However, the reason why Peter specifically chose The Godfather is because he felt like the film dragged on too long and didn't make any sense. But of course, take this review with a pinch of salt, as this is the same man that had trouble figuring out what color a red fire truck was.
Alright, fire truck. Fire truck. What color are those red fire trucks? Oh god, I can picture them now, all red and everything.
And so, swiftly moving on, our next unsolved Family Guy mystery is who can understand Stewie.
Yeah, I don't get it. So, like, can the family understand the baby, or what's the deal with that?
Well, throughout the course of Family Guy, we have had many different answers to this question. As during the early seasons, it was only ever Brian, other kids, and sometimes Chris and Meg, with Family Guy even making a self-referential joke about this in season 6's Love Blackshally.
Really? Isn't she one of those people outside the family who can understand me?
No, I think because of Cleveland, she's close enough to the main cast that it might be a little weird.
However, over the years, we've seen multiple examples of the entire family understanding Stewie, such as in the aforementioned Godfather clip when Lois backs up Stewie's defense of the film.
Well, how can you say you don't like it if you haven't even given it a chance?
I agree with Stewie. It's not really fair.
And then in season 12's Herpy the Love Sore, when Stewie tries to do his famous Cool Whip gag on a belt-wielding Peter.
Hey, Dad, that's a cool whip. Ah, I thought you couldn't understand me!
And this makes what I'm about to say even stranger, as in season 19's Stewie's first word, well, the Family Guy writing staff disregard the fact that Stewie has been understood multiple times, as Stewie then says his first official word. Well, at least the first word that can be understood by everyone in Quahog, with this word, of course, in true Stewie fashion, being a horrible swear word. Although, by far my favourite part of this episode comes right at the very end, as not only does Stewie say his second ever word, but he then uses this to annoy Lois to the point of her exploding.
Say mommy again for Instagram. All right. I tried.
Mommy!
And so, who can truly understand Stewie? Well, definitely Brian and the other children, but other than that, it seems completely random, and it really depends on what the Family Guy writing staff find funny.
Damn it. I always wake up before I find out if they can understand the baby.
And moving on, our next Unsolved Family Guy mystery is why did the show's creator Seth MacFarlane leave the show? I mean, sure, he still does the voices, but he hasn't written a single episode or been involved creatively since season 9. And so, why is this? Well, as I briefly touched on before, this is because Seth MacFarlane wanted to move on to bigger things. And after handing over control of Family Guy in 2010, Seth MacFarlane then spent the next 2 years writing the incredible Ted movie, before then going on to make A Million Ways to Die in the West, as well as Ted 2, The Orville, and the wildly successful Ted TV show. So yeah, he's been incredibly busy, and in his own words, he would never want to give anything less than 100% to any of his projects.
If I'm halfway in it, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to feel like, shit, we got to fix that. You know what? I'm just going to come in and we'll do it together. And it just, I just can't, my brain won't do that. I either got to be completely out or completely in.
Which means as Family Guy fans, we can only hope that one day Seth returns to writing for the show. But honestly, that doesn't look too likely. However, moving on, our next Unsolved Family Guy mystery is Stewie actually gay?
I love you.
What? What'd you say? Olive juice. Olive juice?
Olive juice, you too.
And this is a mystery that has confused fans of Family Guy since the very beginning of the show. As well, the showrunners have made it very clear that Stewie has a fascination with men.
I know where I go when I want to relax. I know the guy that owns this place!
And by far the most extreme example of this comes from season 13's Stewie is Enciente. As after Stewie is scared that Brian will stop hanging out with him, well, he does what any other rational talking baby would do, and he collects Brian's DNA so that he can trap him with having a baby.
I think you mean, what have we done? What? Brian? We're pregnant! Oh my god!
And if this isn't strange enough, which it definitely is, well then Stewie takes this a step further by going all out and having a professional photo shoot for the pregnancy, which, understandably, Brian isn't too best pleased about.
I like these. These are good. Very classy.
This feels incredibly wrong.
And so, this must make Stewie gay, right? Well, no, as throughout Family Guy, we've also seen Stewie fall madly in love with several different girls, including Janet in season 2, his babysitter in season 4, Olivia throughout the entire show, and of course the evil Penelope in season 10.
Dear Pakistan, up yours. Love, India. Let's see what happens.
They did not need much.
And so, is Stewie gay? Well, according to Family Guy writer Gary Janetti, the show wishes to keep Stewie's sexuality ambiguous, as they want to avoid making him a one-note gay character and also to make the times where they do joke about Stewie being gay even more comedically impactful.
And I already know exactly where I'm gonna put that trophy.
So the baby died?
Yeah, the baby died. But look, first place.
So hey, I guess we'll never truly know if Stewie is gay. And before we get onto our final Unsolved Family Guy mystery, here are a few honorable mentions. Starting off with whatever happened to Carol's baby. You see, in Season 3's Mission Impossible, we find out that Lois's sister Carol is pregnant, and that her 8th husband Ted has ran out on her. Something which I'm sure Peter is going to take very seriously and not immediately make fun of.
Hey, Carol, it's me, Ted. Listen, I came back because I love you, and, I'm just kidding, it's me, Peter.
However, after rushing Carol to the hospital and even having Peter deliver the baby, well, we would then never hear of Carol's child ever again. With this being made even more obvious in Season 9's Brothers and Sisters, when Carol goes on to marry Adam West and there's absolutely no mention of her child.
Mom, she's so sad and lonely.
Look who the talking.
Which, of course, then led to fans of the show speculating on the child's whereabouts, with theories ranging from Carol losing custody of the child for being mentally unstable, to even theories that her 9th husband before Adam West unalived the baby. But for now, the mystery of Carol's child remains unsolved. And our second honorary mystery is, how is Brian capable of having a human son? Which honestly is by far the funniest Family Guy mystery, with the Family Guy writing staff predicting the fans' reaction to Brian having a human son, and thus preempted this in Season 6's Former Life of Brian, with an incredibly hilarious exchange between Brian and Stewie.
Say, Brian, now that I think about it, how can you possibly have a 13-year-old son when you yourself are only 7?
Well, those are dog years.
That doesn't make any sense.
You know what, Stewie? If you don't like it, go on the internet and complain.
So yeah, it looks like the reason that Brian is able to have a human son is simply some good old-fashioned cartoon logic. And so, for the moment you've all been waiting for, our final Unsolved Family Guy mystery is, who is Stewie's real mother? And I know what you're thinking, that's obvious, it's Lois, right? Well, not necessarily, as in Season 8's banned episode Partial Terms of Endearment, when the Griffins are all sitting round the dinner table, Lois makes this joke.
I can do it.
Oh, come on, Meg. It was hot enough on your body when you gave birth to Stewie.
What?
Which was initially brushed off by the Family Guy fanbase as just being a joke. However, there are several other signs that Meg could be Stewie's real mother, such as in Season 12's A Fistful of Meg, where we see an entire newborn baby that Meg is keeping hidden in her locker.
Mama! What are you doing out of your box? Hey, Megan! Oh, hey, guys.
Which really makes you think, if she's willing to hide one baby, who's to say that she isn't hiding another and the family is just covering up for her? However, of course, let me know in the comments if you think Meg is Stewie's real mother, as honestly, I do have my doubts, but I think it could be possible. And so, this is every Unsolved Family Guy mystery explained. Hit the subscribe button and tell me your favorite Family Guy mystery.